So what the heck are the bins? Today I'm going to give you a little insight on what to expect before you dig on in. Hi, my name is Desiree. I thrift for items at Goodwills or garage sales. So if you're a newbie or just nervous on what to expect, I'm going to be sharing some tips based on my personal experience, but hopefully get you a little bit more prepared on what to expect for your first time at the bins. So most people are probably pretty familiar with the typical Goodwill, just thrift stores. There's a couple different levels. You may have seen a Goodwill boutique at times, which is like their more high-end type of inventory. Another one is the Goodwill outlet, or also known as the Goodwill bins. So the Goodwill outlets serve as liquidation centers for their actual retail stores. So what this means is, if an item hasn't sold within a certain amount of time, or maybe the store just has like an influx of donations, the items go directly into a truck and just get taken straight to the bins to be sold at a very discounted rate. It's basically just like a one-stop shop for items before they are going to be taken to the landfill to basically just be destroyed. So actually all Goodwills do operate in territories. So in some of the larger towns, you might find a few of these Goodwill outlets, but I have heard some people say they sometimes have to drive an hour to 2 hours to find a Goodwill outlet in their area. So a great place to start is just using your old Google and typing in Goodwill outlets near me. This should show you a pretty good map of where your nearest Goodwill outlet will be. Another great resource to use is if you use Facebook or social media, trying to find any local Goodwill groups that you can join and kind of know a little bit more insight into maybe some of their pricing or any type of special days they have or discount days for senior citizens, students, military, etc. What should you expect when you go into the Goodwill bins? Well, first of all, it's definitely not your typical organized thrift store. Typically you go into a thrift store and things are categorized by, kids, women's, shoes, furniture. In this case, there are literally big bins that I would say are at least 8 feet by 4 feet maybe. You're basically just sorting through bins and hoping to find some treasures along the way. I've noticed in the bins that I have been to, a lot of times they do have their rows of bins that are more clothing, and then you have some shoes, maybe hard goods, and then your furniture or larger pieces are going to be positioned in one area as well. So the big blue bins just rolled out into these rows. They contain clothing, books, hardware, linens, knickknacks. There's so many things that you can find in there. There's books, there's records. You really just never know what's going to be in there. So what should you bring or prepare before you go? Based on how comfortable you are with the entire process, you may want to consider bringing some gloves, some latex gloves, that way your hands are protected. Always be aware that there may be sharp items inside of these bins, or as you're grabbing in, something may be broken and could cut you. So just keep those things in mind as you're lifting things and looking through them. I personally do not use gloves, as I really like to feel the textures of like fabric, because I do primarily sell clothing items, but I always do make sure to bring my sanitizer. Most of the bins that I've been to always have a bottle of sanitizer at the cash register as well, but I think it's great to kind of sanitize every few bins and just make sure you're staying nice and healthy. Another thing to consider is bringing your own bags or potentially like a rolling cart. I've had a couple different experiences with the carts at the bins where if you are not there within the first 10 minutes, you're likely not going to get a cart unless someone in the parking lot is emptying their cart and you can kind of snag it on your way in. I've always brought my IKEA bags with me. I have the pretty large ones, that way I can throw everything in there after I sort it. More recently, I have purchased the Hulken medium-sized bag. It is the best. It has wheels, it's heavy duty, can carry a lot. And so I've been using my IKEA bag and that bag in case I run into a situation where I don't get a cart. So depending on what you're planning on picking up, if you're picking up some larger items, you may consider bringing maybe one of those fold out carts. I've seen a couple people bring the carts that kind of fold up, fold down. I think that's a genius idea too. It's really going to depend on what kind of items that you're looking to pick up, and how much of that you're planning to take home with you. Another idea that has been on my mind to do is bring a hand scale. So I know they have these hand scales that you can use for your luggage, so you can pick up and see how much your luggage weighs before you get on the airplane. So this was an idea that was told to me, and I think it might be something I might look into in the future, is getting one of these little hand scales and maybe seeing if that can kind of give me a better ballpark before I go up to the register and then have to start like scrambling because I didn't get to the 25 or whatever my goal was. So today I have 5 tips for you that will hopefully make that next BINS trip a success. So tip number 1, plan time to make sure that you can actually enjoy this experience. The last thing you want to do is feel like you're in a time crunch and you can't really go through your items, or you don't have time to like see everything you wanted to see. So I would say try to get there early. Try to get there within the first hour if you can. If you can't, that's okay too. But just know that typically you're going to want to spend at least an hour there. I would say, I've spent up to like 4 hours at the BINS. So it really kind of depends on like what you're feeling and what your time frame is. Reserve a few hours, that way you can just shop at your own speed. The whole experience can be very overwhelming, especially in the beginning. I think the first couple trips I did, I just kind of was looking around and observing to see what this place was about, what is happening with like these rotations, and I'll get into those later, but what exactly is happening and how is this going to work for me personally? Tip number 2 is plan what you're going in there for, what kind of items you are looking for, and how much you plan to spend while you're there. When you get into that setting, it can be, like I said, very overwhelming, and because things are so cheap, sometimes you just start throwing a lot of things in your cart, which is totally fine. Just make sure that you do stay focused on, if you are specifically looking for certain sizes or certain brands. If you have a better plan on what exactly you're wanting to go in there for, that'll help you stay focused, and kind of help you understand like how many items that you're really needing, or what the price point is that you want to stay above. That's often something that I set for myself, that if this item is going to be selling for any less than $20, then it's not going to be something I want to pick up today. The idea is to be efficient in there and also get great deals. Tip number 3, make sure you understand the pricing of your Goodwill outlet. Because Goodwill outlets and Goodwills in general are based on territory, they definitely make up their own rules sometimes on pricing, and how things are actually priced. So this is definitely going to be based on your location. Again, those Facebook groups or social media groups that you might be able to get into might give you some insight on some of those better deals or days that might be better to shop. Some different pricing strategies I've seen and heard of is that you are either paying one price per pound for everything. Another I've seen is the more you buy, the less it costs. For instance, if you're buying between 1 and 24 pounds, it's going to be a set flat rate of, $1.69 per pound. If it's going to be 25 to 50 pounds, maybe it goes down to $1.59 per pound. So I've seen that one more commonly in my area. As well as different prices based on the type of item. So whether it be clothing or glassware or furniture, they're going to have different rates per category of item. And then generally for like heavier items and for furniture, they have like a flat rate set on those items. There usually is a sign that's either on the wall or sometimes like hanging from the ceiling that will give you a breakdown of the prices. If for some reason you don't see that when you go in there, just make sure to ask an employee. That way you know exactly what you're getting into and know how to select your items a little bit more strategically. So how it works is when your cart is full and you go up to the register, There is a small scale kind of for some of those smaller like knickknack items. If you have like glassware, typically they want you to put it in there. And then there is a floor scale. So you will like roll your cart onto that scale and it will give you the actual weight the items in your cart are. Based on that weight, they will determine how much to charge per pound. Tip number 4, make sure you understand the rotation cycles. Now, what is a rotation cycle? Bin rotations happen frequently in the bins. Employees will come in and because there's rows, they will start removing bins from the entire row. This process can take like 10-15 minutes maybe. And I would say they do this on the rows maybe every 30 minutes to an hour. They are rotating a whole row of bins. That means all that inventory is going to the back and they are bringing out fresh bins that you can sort through. Because of this, you could literally spend your entire day at the bins and probably just keep seeing new inventory all the time. So keep that in mind. It really doesn't matter what time of day you're going. You're likely going to see new things rolling out. Another thing to keep in mind is rotation etiquette. So I have only been to a few of the local bins in Oregon. I've also been to a few in Texas, and I've seen different strategies in both. If you have strategies that are different than these, please comment below on your location and any tips that you have. I would love to know like if there's something different that I haven't heard of yet. At least in Oregon, I know when they are doing the bin rotation, no one is allowed to touch those carts. You have to step back and they start removing those bins one by one. During that time, you'll start to see people lining up on the sides, just waiting for those next carts to come in. You are not to touch the new carts as they come in unless you want to get yelled at. It's considered best etiquette to stand and wait until all the new bins have been brought in and the Goodwill employees give you the okay to start sorting through. So that was here at the Oregon bins. You stay on the side. When I was in the Texas bins, I noticed that everybody, here's your row of bins, had to stand at the edge. And they did the whole rotation in and out, and when they said it was okay, people literally were running down the row to get into those bins. So in that situation, I felt like it was very chaotic, not really sure how they determine why and which strategy to use, but those are the two that I've seen. A lot of times it's very chaotic when they first do that cart rotation, but if you just stand back for like a couple minutes, you can get in there and people have already kind of cleared out. So depending on if you like that rush and getting in there and being the first one, you can go for that. I generally tend to just stand to the side, let that flush of people go in, and then I go in and check out any leftovers. Tip number 5, always inspect the item before you take them up to the register. I make sure I include this in my time frame of what I'm going to spend at the bins, that I always move to the side at least 45 minutes. 30 minutes is probably the least amount I would reserve. But I literally go through every item one by one, specifically looking for stains. I'm always looking at the seams to make sure all the seams are intact. A lot of times you'll see like the underside of t-shirts, like the seams are coming out. Any snags, any rips, any holes. Now it's up to you on how you decide what item you think is worth taking home for you. A lot of times I do see items that are dirty, but it doesn't seem like it's something I can't just like wash and get out myself. There have been times where there's like, oil stains or things that I just know it's probably going to be too much work or time for me to invest into this item, so I go ahead and pass. But it's up to you if you have like certain tricks that you use to get stains out, or if you know how to stitch a hole or seam really easily, it might be totally worth it to you. There are no fitting rooms in the bins. It is a pay as is type of structure, so no refund. You get it, you take it, and it's yours. So just make sure that you are spending that time really giving some attention to it. That way you could be happy with your purchases. Go with an open mind. If you prefer more of that organized racks that you can sort through and everything's by size, then the Goodwill bins might not be for you. But if you're more like a treasure hunter and you really want to get in there and just kind of see what you can find, it's definitely a place that you should add into your thrifting routine. Please comment below if you have any tips on the local bins in your area. I think the more input we can have in this thread would be awesome to share and help people understand the whole process of the bins. My name is Desiree. I'm a small business owner. I share my journey with reselling with you on YouTube and on Instagram. So please, if you're into content like this, hit that subscribe button, give me a like, and let's keep hanging out.